Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. So I want to talk a little bit as to how the current pandemic has changed or forever changed the antiques and collectibles trade going forward. Whether or not there's a vaccine sometime towards the end of this year or the beginning of next year, it's a moot point. At this point, the behaviors that have been adopted by consumers, by the general public, even by dealers in the trade, even by other sellers in the trade that may not necessarily be full-time dealers. It has already left its imprint or its impact on the antiques and collectibles trade going forward. We really have to have a discussion about this because there's a lot of people that are reaching out to me, even on the consulting side of my business, saying, Sean, I have an awesome idea for a video game arcade meshed with a bar. Or I want to open up my own high-end collectibles shop. Or I want to open up an antique shop. Or I want to open up a comic book store, which I have no idea why you would want to open up a comic book store in the year 2020. That's a whole other video entirely. But regardless, I do have people that reach out and ask me these questions. So I want to make sure that you guys out there understand what's at stake and what has changed in the overall antiques and collectibles trade going forward. And I'm going to start off with a story that was published on the internet, and it takes place in Oklahoma City. Now, there's a reason why I'm choosing Oklahoma City for this story, and I didn't choose an article based on somebody's business struggling out of Philadelphia or New York or Los Angeles or any of the major metropolis cities that we know of. I chose this particular article in particular because it's kind of looking at Main Street, USA. And you can't get any more Main Street than in some of these middle of the country, Midwestern towns. And that's what I was going for with this particular article. So I'm just going to read it to you. It's very brief. Don't worry, it's not going to take long. A man on the sidewalk dressed as a wizard waves customers inside Ray's Knick-Knack Shack in Oklahoma City. But so far, customers are few. The business shuttered just 2 weeks after it opened due to the pandemic. Thousands of antiques, collectibles, furniture, and more fill the 5,000 square foot space waiting to be sold. Yesterday, I only made 25 cents for the entire day. One little item sold, and it's just killing me. My electric bills are running me over $500 a month, owner Chuck Ray said. A receipt shows the business made around $500 this past week. Ray says he's applied for the SBA, Paycheck Protection Program, a bank loan, and didn't qualify for either because his business is so new. I don't think it's fair because I'm a businessman just like everybody else, he said. My dad died November 8th. My mom died January 30th of this year. And out of the inheritance money they left me, I opened this business. I'm almost starting to well up for this guy because I feel really bad that this is the state of the antiques and collectibles trade from a retail standpoint in the year 2020. He hopes to hand it down to his sons one day if he can persevere through his tough start for this shop. I just don't want to lose what I'm trying to build with my family, and this is something that means a lot to me, and I'm thankful for it because my parents did it for me, and I just want to keep it open. And that's the way this article ends, guys. It's very sad. It's very somber. You know, this is the state that we're currently in. And when it comes to the antiques and collectibles trade and how it was fundamentally changed by the current pandemic, by the current economic system, you must understand that online selling, online auctions, online marketplaces are the new norm. If you don't believe me, all you need to do is log on to Comic Link, Heritage Auctions, Hakes, Morphe's, Cowens, Philip Weiss, whatever your favorite auction site is. Just log on and you will see record-breaking prices being paid for some of the most popular pop culture-based collectibles, for some of the higher-end antiques, coins, currency, firearms, edged weapons, glassware, even antique pottery, whatever it is. It's achieving a fairly strong price right now because everything transitioned online, and you have people that have money who have been buying online pretty much now for almost 2 decades, if not more. You also have people that are getting stimulus money, and let's be honest, some of that money is flowing right now. I did a whole video on this to the antiques and collectibles trade as we speak. So To those of you out there that want to get into a quote unquote traditional brick and mortar retail shop, and you want to do something with either collectible game cards like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or vintage video games, or even if you want to do something esoteric, like you want to combine your passion for vintage video games or arcade games with like an adult bar and arcade, it is a bad idea, guys. Even before the pandemic, I would have told you guys that that is a very, very rough business to get into. It's no different. A couple of months back, I did a video on why most collectors out there who have this idea that they're going to open up a museum, and everybody is going to come to this museum because it's going to have all these awesome video games or comic books or toys or whatever they're going to put into it. People are going to come and they're going to pay an admission to see these items and possibly spend money at your gift shop or whatever else you need to keep that establishment afloat. That is a Ponzi dream. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It can work legitimately if the right capitalized people go into that business model with the right approach. Usually that's the government. That's why the Smithsonian is one of the most successful museums operated by the wonderful government. Individuals don't own the Smithsonian. Individuals don't own the Philadelphia Art Museum. Those establishments are run by the government. Do you see the difference? When a person takes on these types of feats, especially when we're talking about museums, when we're talking about these visions of grandeur that a lot of these collectors have, in most cases, not in all, there are some success stories, less than 5%, but they are out there, they most likely fail. The same thing is happening with retail right now. I know a lot of you in the back of your mind have this idea where, well, Sean, if I open up a shop, I live right close to a college area, and if I start buying all these awesome video game collections, I'll make a fortune. No, you will not. Most of your clientele is not going to sell it to you at a reduced price when they can pull out their smartphone, take a picture of it, and list it on eBay and get top dollar. Let's be realistic. The person who is going to sell to you would have to be extremely desperate in this day and age to be willing to part with an item that they know they can flip right online for roughly, 80, 90, 100% of its value, rather than sell it to you for 20, 30, 40, 50% of its value. And I have people reaching out to me where that is the current mindset. I have one guy, I'm not going to state his name. He is on YouTube at a smaller capacity, meaning he has even less subscribers than I do, who opened up a video game shop and he regrets it. He opened it up in 2017 and he's been struggling ever since. Now the pandemic came and he's pretty much facing bankruptcy. I'm not going to say who it is, but he is in a bad place as a result. And he had this wonderful Ponzi dream where all he had to do was build it, open his doors, and people would be bringing him vintage Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis or TurboGrafx game collections on a regular basis, where he would be able to pay his rent, stock inventory, and live the life of Riley. And guess what, guys? It never happened. It is a bad idea in this current economic environment. And it was a bad idea, literally, even a decade ago. If you would have came to me and you would have said, Sean, I'm doing it. I'm going to open up a collectible card game shop. Or I'm going to open up, how's this, for those of you that think I'm biased towards collectibles, a high-end coin retail store where I'm going to stock $5,000 to $10,000 coins. And people are going to come from all over to get these investment-grade coins. I'm shaking my head. No, they're not. They're going to log on to heritage.com or a lot of these other auction sites, whether we're talking Comic Link for comic books, Hakes for high-end graded action figures and toys, Morphe's for vintage advertising, and that's where they're going to purchase these items. They're not going to drive to your shop, no matter how cool it is. It's not going to matter, because investment-grade antiques and collectibles can be easily bought online due to either the reputation of the auction house that is vetting those particular items for buyers and sellers, or the advent of third-party grading, guys, which really changed the fundamentals of all these markets. Now, if you would have went back in time, you get in your DeLorean time machine, and you go back to the 1980s or even the early 1990s, it was necessary, if you wanted to be a successful antique and collectible dealer, you had to have a quote-unquote retail shop. In most cases, there were certain instances where you had kind of the picking trend, meaning there were people that would get down and dirty at flea markets, antique fairs, antique markets, and auctions. They would buy items that they knew that they could flip to other higher end retail shops, other dealers for a small profit, and that would be their business model. Meaning they would just get up early and they would look at flea markets, antique marts, auctions, and the like, and they would try to buy items for under retail value and then flip those particular items to other dealers who would mark them up even more. Today, that's a little hard to do because not only do we have the virus to contend to, but we also have a lot of dealers going directly online. So if you learn one thing from the pandemic, understand that if you have it somewhere in your head that you're going to open up this awesome retail shop, get it out of your head. It is a bad idea. It will continue to be a bad idea. Doesn't matter if tomorrow they announce, hey, we have a vaccine. All we got to do is inject 70% of the population, and within the next year, the coronavirus will be a thing of the past, which most likely isn't going to happen. But if that were to happen, retail would still be a bad environment to get into, at least from the antiques and collectibles side of the equation, the barcade side of the equation, or the museum side of the equation. Just keep that in mind. The other thing that you must understand as a result of the pandemic is more mass-produced collectibles are going to come onto the market in the next couple of months, the next couple of years. This is going to be an ongoing thing, I really think, because as people were stuck at home these last couple of months when we did have the formal quarantine where everything was shut down, a lot of people, and I noticed this because I started to get a lot of messages through people who would find me on Facebook, people who would find me on LinkedIn that knew that I wrote for Antiques and Auction News, that knew that I was a consultant in the trade. And I would just get asked, hey, can I ask you a question? I have this collection of X, whether it's comic books, video games, VHS tapes, whatever it was. This person was not a collector, but they wanted to know if the items had value because they want to flip them on eBay or they want to look at clearing out their house and getting a lot of this stuff sold, because if they're stuck indoors all day, a lot of people are taking the time to organize, clean, and straighten their houses. Now, here's an interesting statistic for you guys. Statistic, can't speak today. Most people have $5,000 to $7,000 worth of stuff in their house just lying around, even if they're not a collector, that they can liquidate for cash. That does include, like for instance, let me use this as an example. If you're not really a collector, but you went out and you bought a PlayStation 4 video game system, and maybe you have 5 games for that system, that would be included in that analogy. Any DVD movies, Blu-ray movies, VHS tapes, that's all included in that particular analysis as well. Well, the average person has roughly $5,000 to $7,000 of stuff just lying around their house. And I did get an uptick of people telling me that they are actually going to flip this stuff on eBay during the pandemic. Now, whether or not they did, I never went back and checked to see if those people followed through on that. But there was a lot of people that told me, hey, I'm going to list my comic book collection from the 70s, 80s, and 90s on eBay as a result of this. I had one person that came to me and said, hey, I found all these old Magic the Gathering cards. I think some are worth a lot of money. I'm going to flip them on eBay. Now, that person wasn't a client of mine in the consulting business, so I didn't really engage with them. I have no idea what they had, whether they were Ice Age or, lesser valuable reserve list cards, or maybe they did have some alpha, beta, unlimited revised cards that are now going to hit eBay and the internet overall. But my point being is, a lot of these collections are going to start to come out of the woodwork. Also, you have to look at the point, if people are struggling financially, all these collections are going to be sold off as a result of that as well. So right now, due to asset price inflation, we are seeing a little bit of a high price point for some of these items. What's probably going to happen, and again, I can't predict the future. I can only speak economics to you. If supply for some of these collectibles that are now selling for a small premium to a significant premium in certain items does extend and becomes a thing, and a lot of these people are selling these items, prices eventually are going to start to drop on some of this stuff. Not saying it's going to happen next week, not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, not saying it's going to happen next month, but this is basic economics 101, guys. Supply versus demand. It is very important that if you are investing in this stuff for the long term, and again, you guys know my caution on some of this stuff. I've said it a million times. There are certain markets that I consider to be highly speculative. It doesn't mean you shouldn't invest in them or you shouldn't go after those items if that's your passion. You just have to use caution because, again, very few people out there can predict the future. You can't look at past results and consider that to be the norm going forward. We saw that with what happened in the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, and also what just happened with the pandemic. You know, I tell you guys this regularly. That's why I like to invest in the long term in coins, currency, historical documents, artwork, collectible first edition books, items of that nature, because I know those markets are both mature and stable overall. You can still lose money in those markets. Make no mistake. If somebody gets into those markets, they don't know what they're doing, they can lose a significant amount of money, if not all their money. But that being said, if you have somebody with a lot of knowledge about those markets and they're analyzing where to park money for the long term, those are the markets that I am drawn to. Just clear that out of the way. The next thing that you must understand, and this is very important, resellers. Those of you out there that go to pawn shops, flea markets, yard sales, you're going to struggle even more as soon as this pandemic ends to get inventory. And the reason being is all those wonderful people that sold you their items at yard sales, at flea markets, even at certain pawn shops, certain discount thrift stores, a lot of them are now going to get a taste for selling online. And there's absolutely going to be no point to sell you a Nintendo game for $5 that you can take home and you can flip on eBay for $15, $20, $25 when they finally got a taste for selling items on eBay. So this is something that has been afflicting the trade, I want to say over the past 10 years, literally, predominantly, where people have been introduced or have been forced to sell online and they get a taste for it and they no longer go back to selling at flea markets, selling at yard sales, selling at thrift shops, selling at pawn shops, simply because they now learned that the item that they were selling at a flea market, at a yard sale, at a pawn store, at a thrift shop, they were only getting X number of dollars for. Online, they can get top dollar for that item. They don't need to sell it to a middleman. And this is something that is really, really going to affect the trade. It already has to a certain extent. But now we even have people, and I've seen this happen. I had a guy reach out to me who found a firearm in his attic. And again, he reached out to me through Facebook Messenger, and I really don't like when people do that. I do not respond to all the messages I get through Facebook Messenger for that particular reason, because if I keep responding, it just causes more people to send me messages, and then it's like I'm not getting any of my major work done. All I'm doing is responding free of charge to every Mary and Joe out there who has a question on antiques and collectibles. Well, this person really caught my eye because they sent me a picture of a particular rifle that was kind of popular during the Civil War. And ironically, I recognized what it was, and I was able to put him in touch with an auction company, I'm not going to state the auction company's name, who is going to be hosting it in an upcoming sale. So I was glad that I was at least able, free of charge, because it took me like 5 minutes just to tell him who to reach out to, that I was at least able to give him that information. He was able to contact the auction company, and the auction company did offer to consign that item for him. Now, the reason why I did that was if he would have attempted to sell that to somebody out there, whether online or through a classified ad, or if he goes on Reddit and announces he has this item, he probably would have gotten taken advantage of. And that's really where we are in the antiques and collectibles trade in the year 2020. You know, guys, just be cautious. There's a lot of people out there that claim to be collectible brokers. And I always hated that term. All is what it is somebody who knows a lot of these auction sites, knows where to go to get these items, and they can connect a buyer or a seller. Even in the consulting business, I give that information for free. I'm not going to make you pay me to tell you what auction house to get an item you're looking for or an item you want to sell. That, in my opinion, is BS. You should not charge for that information. Most people can do a Google search and figure out that information within 5 or 10 minutes. So the only person that you're really hurting if you withhold that information from somebody is pretty much your own reputation at that point. I just want to state that. So that's something that I don't think people realize, but if it was already hard for you to get product to flip or sell on eBay, going forward, it's probably going to be a lot harder, because even in the state of Pennsylvania, and to be fair, I'm not going to get political, but the state of Pennsylvania did an excellent job at curbing the virus. We literally have, at present time, less than 110,000 total cases in the entire state. And ironically, I'm more at risk because most of the cases that we do have are surrounded by the Philadelphia area, which is really where I live. I'm 50 minutes away from Philly. So if I would go into Center City, I would have one of the highest opportunities to contract the virus than anywhere else in the state of Pennsylvania at present time. So I think overall, our state did an excellent job at curbing the virus, but even going to flea markets, yard sales, and antique marts, and I tried to go out and just see what was happening in the realm of that particular business opportunity, I can see there's very few flea market sellers that are still coming out and selling their wares, and I anticipate once they get a taste of selling online, that trend is going to pick up, and most of those sellers are going to go, you know, why should I sit out here in the hot sun and sell this particular item that I paid $1 for $5 when I can take it myself, sell it on eBay, and get the $20 full that it's worth? And that is what's starting to happen. And I just want to prepare you all, that is going to be the trend going forward. So some of you out there that put in the comment section on my videos and state, Sean, I can flip antiques and collectibles. I know what I'm doing. I make hundreds of dollars a week. First of all, no offense to you. I understand we all have to start somewhere. Hundreds of dollars a week, especially if we're talking about $100 to $200 profit. If you're out there busting your proverbial ass for 8 to 10 hours a day on a Saturday or Sunday, you're horribly underpaid. And that includes listing those items, cleaning those items, getting ready for resale. Believe me, I did it back in the 1990s. I know what's involved in running a successful online eBay business. Even if you don't sell on eBay, if you sell on the internet, that used to be, and still is to a certain extent, my bread and butter. I do engage in that. It is not an easy business to get into. It is not an easy business to scale. What I mean by scale is grow that business. And it's also not an easy business in the year 2020 due to the amount of competition, due to the amount of people that think, oh, collectibles are easy money. I'm going to, quote unquote, invest in these items for either the short term or the long term. And you really got to be careful, and you really got to understand your market, and you got to know your numbers, guys. I've said this before. I will say this again. And I know a lot of you get mad when I bring this up. Chick-fil-A, at least in my area, will hire for $13, $14, $15 an hour in some cases. Some of you guys are getting into these markets and you're literally making $3, $4, $5, or $6 an hour. And I got to ask, how much do you really enjoy doing this that you would forgo $8 or $9 an hour on top of that just so that you can say you're self-employed? And that's what a lot of people are struggling with in the antiques and collectibles trade. I spend a lot of time with people who ask me, Sean, how can I scale my business? Sean, I'm doing Lego on Bricklink. How come I'm not as successful as your Bricklink store? Or how come I'm not making this amount of money? What am I doing wrong? Well, the problem is there is so much competition in these areas. You really have to be at the top of your game. You have to understand finance. You have to understand economics. You really have to know your numbers. Sometimes your numbers are not worth it, where it's going to really come to you and go, is this really something I want to do or engage in? Can I make more money over here doing this, even if I don't want to do this? That's something that only you yourself can answer. As you get older, and I'm going to state this for any of you guys out there watching this that are in your 20s or 30s, when you get into your 40s, like me, I'm 43. I'm going to be 44 in December of this year. When I look, even in my corporate job, I sometimes got to ask, is it worth me doing this for this amount of money? Whether it's in a business that I own or whether it's somebody else paying me to do that work. Every day, I have to answer the question, what is the opportunity cost for me doing this particular job, whether I want to do the job or not? And that's something that you guys have to start asking yourself. I understand that a lot of you have a passion for a lot of this stuff. So do I. But sometimes the numbers speak to you, and you don't want to listen or think about what they're trying to tell you. That's how I'm going to leave this video. I know I hate leaving it at a pessimistic ending. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of this. If you didn't, please let me know in the comment section below, and I'll gladly do a follow-up. There were more points I wanted to make in this video, but we're already at 25 minutes, and I think I'll save those points for another video on a similar topic. Thanks, guys, and have a good night.